the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland. He saw the Queen in person just a few days really before she died at the Royal Deeside estate. And thank you so much for being with us here on the BBC as we stay with images from the city of Edinburgh. And tell us about your final, as it turned out to be, conversation with Her Majesty. What did you discuss?
Well, it was exactly a week ago today, and we were just discussing the service that had taken place at Crathy Church. We were doing that over dinner. She was very lively and engaged in discussion, and when I was giving leave to leave Balmoral, I spoke to her for a few moments and I gave her a wooden cross that had been made by prisoners in Glenagle prison, and she very gratefully received it from me and wished me goodbye. I find it very difficult to believe that that lady who was so alive and with it a week ago is no longer with us.
Because we had all seen her looking much more frail physically, but you're clearly telling us that in every other way she was bright, she was engaged, was she the person you had always known, the person you had always had these sort of conversations with?
Well, I mean, I hadn't had any conversations with her up until then. And I hadn't known what to expect. And you're right, she was frail when she came into the room. But that wasn't the lady that I was engaged in conversation with on Saturday or on Sunday. She was intelligent, she was with it, up to date. She had an incredible memory for things. And I just find it very difficult to believe that that's her gone.
And it is well documented the importance of her faith to her throughout her life. Did you touch on that?
Yes, we did, and that was very evident in the conversations that we had, and we'll have the opportunity now tomorrow of expressing our thanksgiving for her life in St Giles, and it's a very appropriate place that will take place in, and it's very appropriate that we'll be celebrating her life and her faith there.
And just on a more personal level, I suppose, I'm struck by the number of people over the last few days who've said to me how much the Queen would put you at your ease when you entered the room, despite the inevitable formality surrounding her. I think everyone has said once you are actually in her presence, we forget that she was remarkably easy to talk to. Would you say that was your experience?
Absolutely. She was the Queen, yes, you knew that. And there was a certain respect for Her Majesty, but absolutely had you right at your ease from the get-go. She was quite a remarkable lady.
Thank you so much for your remembrances and for your time here on BBC News. Thank you. That's Right Reverend Dr. Ian Greenshields, the moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland. And now let's return to the centre of Edinburgh. Well, I don't even know how many deep those crowds are. Just people as far as the eye can see as this cortege makes its slow final procession through the streets of Edinburgh. And the Queen's coffin will rest there in St Giles Cathedral for 24 hours.
This is the capital of one of her kingdoms, to which she's returning the last time. And I think, it's almost become a cliche, people saying, I'm here because of the history. But why not? It is an age passing, and such a such a shy person, for such a shy person to command such loyalty and love. Well, it's actually a tribute to her shyness and, I think, to her Christian faith. I mean, it's not for him to say, but I'm sure she greatly enjoyed meeting the Dr. Ian Greenshields. Her professional duties brought her up with a number of classes of men and women, men of politics, men of philanthropy, men and women of philanthropy, and women of politics. But it was always said that she and the Duke of Edinburgh, who did enjoy a good philosophical argument, loved to talk with men and women of God, and to discuss the faith that both of them, the personal faith that both of them had, and which we heard the new King Charles express so eloquently, talking about his mother and father now being joined in heaven.
Let's just hear a little of the crowds again, shall we? Again, plenty of clapping as this slow procession makes its way. Apologies, I'm slightly jumping ahead of myself because, of course, the cortege is taking the Queen to the Palace of Holyrood House. That will be its final destination this afternoon. But, of course, ultimately, the Queen will lay at rest at St Giles Cathedral, the cathedral we've mentioned many times today, and that is where people will be able to pay their respects. But at the moment, the cortege wending its way to the Palace of Holyrood House.
That really was the Royal Mile today, wasn't it? In every sense.
The Royal Mile in every sense.
It is, isn't it?
Yes.
I think it's also interesting when you watch that people are clapping very politely, but it's like people will think, how do you respond to a funeral? People aren't going to cheer or shout, or there's this sort of ripple of polite applause.
There is, isn't there?
People want to reflect on it.
Let's hear a little more of that, I think. And so the Queen is very nearly at the end of her journey for today. The hearse pulled up at the front of the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh. And she will remain there overnight before the focus then tomorrow turns to St Giles Cathedral in the city. The coffin will be taken into the throne room inside Holyrood House. Which will be her resting place for tonight. So quiet at Holyrood House. And my guests watching all of this today, this moment in history, as the Queen's coffin is taken inside. The Princess Royal, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward. The Queen's children.
So she now has 3 of her children with her, and King Charles will come tomorrow.
Yes, the Princess Royal and her husband made that journey with the cortege, staying with her mother throughout that final journey from Balmoral to Edinburgh. And now the Queen's 3 children there inside the Palace of Holyrood House, where the Queen will rest tonight. And again, seeing her 3 children, it reminds us perhaps of those scenes we saw less than 24 hours ago, I think, outside Balmoral, as members of the royal family came out to thank the well-wishers, to look at the flowers, to read all the messages, and we saw those very, very moving images of some of the members of the royal family visibly upset. They had lost a loved one. So easy to forget that Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, for example, who were very, very tearful as they looked at all the tributes that had been left. They had lost their granny. The Prince of Wales, the new Prince of Wales, he's issued that very moving statement talking about how he has lost a grandmother. And just there, again, as the coffin was taken inside, we had that, just that flash, that momentary shot where we remember that there are children and grandchildren who have lost someone very dear to them, just as the nation says goodbye to the longest reigning monarch in its history. Robert Lacey, who's been with me here throughout the day. You have studied history, you write about royal history, but we have not seen these scenes before, and we may not again.
Well, we certainly haven't seen them before, and I think maybe what's totally unique about today is hundreds of miles of clapping. Has ever that happened before? Starting, as Sean said, with the small, humble church, and finishing now in the grandeur of Edinburgh. But it was thanks to the helicopter, which had to take a break halfway through. That's what's unique. As we remarked earlier, other monarchs have died away from the capital, reminders of the United Kingdom we live in. As the generations have gone by, they've been from Queen Victoria, who was just whisked up by train and taken to Windsor, to George V and George VI, who came from Sandringham with more ceremony and public attention. But this moves beyond them all. Every camera shot we saw, where we saw two images, what the camera was showing us and what all those upheld mobile phone screens were showing us too, which were in fact people's memories getting preserved that they will be taking home and looking at tonight. New technology bringing these eternal emotions, an old-fashioned ceremony and meaning home in a new way.
Yes, and what were people clapping? Were they saying thank you? Were they saying goodbye? Were they, as we've heard so many times, that even all the people we've interviewed at Buckingham Palace today, wanting to be part of this moment of history, as you've said, Robert?
Well, we wondered with Martin, didn't we, how people would react with the conflicting emotions of farewell and then also the welcoming of the new era.
Yes.
Old-fashioned English clapping. Sorry, British clapping. Scottish clapping.
Well done. Don't make me correct you.
Proved to be the way, but it was discreet, restrained, respectful all the time.
It was, wasn't it? Throughout. Really was throughout. Since 10 o'clock this morning, that is exactly how it has been. And now, Martin Geiser, this is Edinburgh's time now for the next 24 hours. This is the focus is on this city.
Do you know what's just struck me is that the journey today has taken the Queen from a place where she knew as a place of rest. It was an informal place for her, and we saw the cortege emerge through the gates of Balmoral